Deb Halfrich, hashtag redhead if she hop. I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm don't know why we like to say I'm sorry when we're emphasizing we're like about to be really brilliant. But this is a brilliant Socratic monologue. It's improv. This is me working through something to see where it might go, but I just discovered another part of my evolutionary logic theory that explains humans as one united species via also looking at mammalian migration. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is there's one land bridge through Siberia. It's nonsense. That was a very late route, much earlier in the development of ourselves and giraffes. South America was closer to Africa. We see it. It's visually not a challenge. And we just haven't really looked at the right perspective to understand how close they were. Because what I'm thinking about always is like human migration and how Africans went on rowabout. That's what happened early on in the world. Maybe not entirely. Maybe South Africa was significantly closer. Oop. Sorry. What that was is a brain fritz, a nervous system fritz, where I heard someone talking. I noticed, looking at my safe, and that the battery was still on, but I just had to put up the last window. My brain knew everything new. I just needed a placeholder to go back in and get that. So sorry we left giraffing, human migration. Giraffing is my favorite verb. It explains my midlife transformation from a polar bear to a giraffe. Take that, Franz Kafka. And the whole thing of putting side by side two mammals that we absolutely think of vastly different ecosystems, vastly different properties, and working out, well, how did that happen? Reverse engineering it using evolutionary logic to make it make sense. So, with polar bears, I had to ask, there's no bears in Africa. Bears originated in Asia from an aquatic. So it actually makes sense that the bears came through the land bridge, because I also don't think there's bears in South America. Bears are a relatively new species, and they're very successful in their ways because, coming from an aquatic ancestor, they got to become mammals like at a very ripe stage of evolution, and they became a species, and that happened much more recently. So that they use the land bridge, and we have polar bears. We have brown and black and polar bears. Polar bears. I lived as a polar bear for the first 50 years of my life. Large, pale, dominant in my ecosystem, constantly alone, the occasional Arctic fox companion. When I turned 50, I sorted the hard problem of consciousness into an easy pivot, which allowed me to enact a metamorphosis to becoming a giraffe. Yeah, I'm going to get to go to Africa real soon. We, from the Human Genome Project, are 68% like fruit flies. So, send me your percentage. We're 88% like bears and 89% like giraffes. Some humans, very clearly, especially Africans, especially people of African, well, it's not African descent. I'm of African descent. We've got bad terminology here when it comes to the axis of time and evolution. Things just didn't happen like this. So, but people with more melanated skin in 2021 who are tall and lean and regal and have ancestral posture and perhaps are not entirely in love with their communicating with their cell phones. That was a Jungian twist. You know about Freudian slips. Well, that was a Jungian twist. So, anyway, back again. Giraffing. Giraffes didn't go to Asia. Giraffes aren't really, a migratory species. That's as polar bears. Polar bears constantly. I mean, it's such a harsh environment. You're always migrating to find better, seals to eat. Or salmon. No, not in the polar bears. Sorry, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. But no, polar bears do rarely. Polar bears are not in that ecosystem with salmon. Now, bears went over the land bridge, and that makes them much more recent. Giraffes are ancient, more ancient migratory, because I don't see any giraffing at all going to Asia. You had to, I think there are a more equatorial species, and getting, camels up into the desert, maybe slightly have a long distant co-ancestor. I don't know that. I am theorizing that, and I bet we would find that to be true. Just these challenging questions pop up in my mind, and I know the right answer because I can use evolutionary logic. It's how my subconscious functions. But where I do see animals who could easily have a common ancestor with a giraffe would necessitate having a common ancestor with a giraffe. Llamas and alpacas. Long neck, same common ancestor. You can see it just as you can see that South America used to fit into Africa. You can see that giraffes and llamas and alpacas have common ancestors. Now, this answers a great deal about human migration, does it not? Because our early African ancestors would have had easier access to South America than we currently can visually perceive of today. Had to have been, and we can prove that philosophically with mammalian migration. Now, some anthropologists can go do it's a hypothesis. That's what I proved. This is a valid hypothesis. I could send anthropologists off to do their research. I could send, do some carbon dating. Once again, we randomly find stuff and then we make up stories, but we don't know the time. And we can make some time on some of the sedimentary, but the earth is always shit. I mean, again, South America somehow got real the far away from Africa. That's an interesting geological story, is it not? But it confounded how we thought about ourselves. It led to dehumanizing our valuable ancestors. It matters that we take all knowledge and make sure it's valid and make sure we're seeking wisdom, because we have put our species at the brink of self-extinction. We're not understanding every human's one species. We shouldn't be judging and categorizing. We have to understand it is the stress of our civilizational framework that's causing all evil. And the game that gets played that causes all evil is plantation capitalism. The last 500 years of our existence only. It feels like that's the way the world has been forever. This same, faulty logic of not lining things up correctly in time. When we're so busy being human consumings, buying shit left and right, the complexity of our thinking decreases. And things that should be self-evident to you are in your blind spots. You don't have the mental processing power to line them up. And that's simply this superpower I have as a wise feminine philosopher, with one side of her face different than the other side of her face, and she's constantly gonna get these things into synchrony. And then my face gets synchronous, I might be regarded as more beautiful, but in my own pleasure, I'm going to be the fifth force. The fifth element might have been Mila Jovovich in her little tiny body, but to become the fifth force, consciousness, it actually took having a huge polar bear body to have the resources to hibernate in a cave, to unthink all of the faulty, flawed, and fraudulent paradigms that locked me in a life of misery, and then enact a total body, brain, biofield metamorphosis after I've turned 50 to become a giraffe. I don't know which side is more giraffe. Giraffing. Still polar bear-y. And I had no sleep last night because I got evicted yesterday from the safety of a parking space and had to... I had no sleep last night. So I'm really feeling this is my second performance today, and I think the embodiment is below the level I had reached if I had sleep. 2, 3, 4 of my previous videos. I had the whole package persona going on. I've been diligently polishing my craft, perfecting my performance, and I think they're stellar. Why on earth is there not a single other human who's actually understanding what I'm saying? Am I speaking in whispers? No, I'm simply in a different brain state. I'm in gamma brain state. Because I am the hashtag redheaded She-Hulk, and while gamma radiation turned Bill Bixby into the Incredible Hulk, gamma brainwaves turned me into the hashtag redheaded She-Hulk. Harmony. Harmony, y'all.